Why don't you take a seat? Oh, yeah, very good, very good.
Danielle in the middle.
Yeah. There you go.
Can you look here?
Here in the middle. Very.
Now to the left.
Maybe actually,
It's a different angle.
yeah.
I'm peeking. Peeking.
And hold here again, please. Hold here. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, now the cards go together. Goes together.
Start it and right here. And one. Thank you.
Hold here. Again, please.
And again together in the middle. Yeah.
And one quick one to the left again. Okay, now this one.
So then Danielle individually.
Yeah. And in the middle. One more.
So James now.
Danielle, let's bring her
Let me get a phone.
Give me once again. Thank you. Yeah.
It's like, where's Guy Nattiv show? I like that. I think that's way better. I really like that.
and to the left, please. One more. Look.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Get this.
Yeah.
Keep it there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. Bye. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we can start now. If you all sit, thank you. So welcome to Panorama. Welcome to the press conference for the movie Skin. And we have, as you can see, wonderful guests. I'm going to introduce them to you, and I'm starting, as always, from your left. Please welcome the producer, Céline Rattray. And another producer, you may know him, Oren Moverman. And we have a third producer, Jamie Ray Newman. Welcome to Berlin. And the wonderful actress who played Julie, Danielle MacDonald. It's great to have you here. And this is the one who played Bryon Widner so wonderfully, Jamie Bell. It's great to have you here. And next to me is the director, the writer and producer, Guy Nattiv. Welcome. So, Guy, my first question goes to you. This story is known because there's a documentary. I've seen parts of it some years ago. Is that for you also? Was that the reason to find the story? How did you find this story?
Well, I was in a long-distance relationship with my wife now, Jamie, and I knew that I was about to move to the States. So I was looking for a story, an American story to tell, and I read the paper in Israel in a coffee shop, and I saw this astounding photo of Bryon Widner, kind of like montage of his tattoos. And I read the article, and I was overwhelmed by his story. And I called my wife, and I told her, listen, I think this is my first American movie, and we just need to find those guys. And then I saw the documentary, Raising Hate, MSNBC did, and through them we got in touch with Bryon and his wife, and it all started from there. But I just felt that this story is very, very emotional. It was before Trump, before everything, and yeah, that's how it all started.
And exactly, that's what I mean. This is a very emotional film, much more emotional than documentary. So that must have been the reason. But still, you telling so much more because you tell also his story in his family, which is so important. These both ambivalent figures of mother and father, and of course parallel the story of his skin that is not magically, but very painfully erased. Maybe you can say something about this, intertwining these stories.
So the documentary actually was focusing more on the visceral, physical transition, and I was very interested about what he had in his past and how he became this guy and the love story. So, meeting Bryon himself, he kind of opened his world to us, and he helped me shape the script in a way that, we have both the mental and physical transition. Mm-hmm. So, once we got into this world, it was fascinating to discover more than the documentary offered. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what it was. So
he helped you, and he met Jamie probably too. So how was it when you were presented to him? This is the guy who plays you. What did he say? What did you think?
I had a lot of thoughts about it. A lot of thoughts about him, and his actions and the choices that he'd made in his life up to that point. I was very honest with him. I wasn't going to give him an easy ride. I wanted him to be honest with me. I wanted him to know that I didn't approve or didn't love the choices that he had made up until that point. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, I didn't know him. Mm-hmm. He's in a witness protection program. There are certain things that he's not allowed to do now because of his actions. He can't get a passport. He can't move around. He lives in a constant kind of state of fear, to be honest. I basically sat in his garage with him for about 4 days where he smoked a carton of cigarettes, smoked me out to the point where I was like, you need to open the door, otherwise I'm going to die. And he said, I can't open the door because he was very nervous that he would be shot. And, and he lives with that. But when I went there and what I met and what I expected were two very different things. I went and I saw a guy who was very interested. I saw a guy who was very curious, a guy who had passions, who had interests, who was incredibly courteous, who introduced me to his family. And it is all the more conflicting because there is another reality where his life goes a different way and he doesn't do this. and he has another reality, you know. And I consider my life. I was very fortunate. I was picked to play this character in a movie about a kid who wanted to dance, and that changed my life. And I'm very lucky for that, you know. And my relationship with Bryon is I really consider him to be someone who certainly got a rough end of the deal, but now who is someone who pays for it on a daily basis. He looks at himself in the mirror, and he reckons with himself every day.
Yeah. How was his reaction to the film? Has he seen it yet?
Yeah, he saw the movie. He was on set, and where we shot the scenes, he sometimes had hard time to see himself, and he couldn't face it. But when he saw the movie, he was very, very grateful that we all came together to tell his story.
It's a very powerful movie because, of course, as I said, the ambivalence in all the characters in a way, at least in Bryon and his parents, and also in Julie, who is very important, but on the same time understandable. She says, "No, I can't do that. You have to." She's separating for a few time. Maybe you can say something about this connection between you playing this couple that has to help each other so much.
Yeah, I mean, in the film, when we are introduced to Julie, she is trying to stay out of the movement. She grew up in it. Her father was in the movement. It is what she had known. Her exes were in the movement, and she had this incredible love for her children, didn't want them to be a part of it. And I think that is what kept her away from the movement. I think the difficult thing to try and figure out was she was falling in love with someone that was still in it, but it was kind of their connection and needing to get out that kind of propelled them forward as well.
I think Guy was always like constantly reminding us. I mean, I would like look at the script and try and make sense and chart this trajectory of this relationship, and I just couldn't really make heads or tails of it sometimes. And he would say, "These are not rational people. They don't do things like you would do things like as you would. So you can't come at it from that point of view." And obviously Guy had spent enough time with them to really understand what that meant. And I think he really had to drill that into us quite a lot to try and remove the normal kind of understanding of how a relationship works. I think one reference for the relationship was Sid and Nancy. That is not a rational relationship, clearly. You know, but that was a good jumping off point for the two.
But talking of that, how did you research anyway? I mean, did you go undercover to white supremacy meetings or something? What did you do to make this, because it looks very authentic, you know, all this festival atmosphere and the music, and what did you do, all three of you, to research?
Well, first of all, Bryon Widner opened the door to a whole world. We had a documentary that gave us a lot, but yeah, I mean, we went to it's called the Rust Belt of America, where Ohio, Indiana, and the whole, and we started to look into those places where white extremists are, but basically Bryon, with his story, gave us everything we needed. We had pictures, we had videos, we had everything we needed to do that, and also Jamie and Danielle got to be there with him. So I guess that was a really big help, right? Would you say that the documentary helped you a lot?
Yeah, I mean, that's, what do you think? I mean, it's certainly having source material of any kind. I mean, having actual footage to look at of the two of them together was
very helpful. Yeah. And talking to Bryon, just kind of figuring out their relationship, but also, I mean, honestly, like just in general, watched a bunch of documentaries about that kind of lifestyle. It's like I definitely didn't go undercover and look at any of it. That would be horrifying, but you looking at it from the outside in, it's hard. I mean, I judge it because it's something that I'm like repelled against. So it was interesting coming into the characters because Jamie and I really had to find the relationship and the love for children, and that is kind of how I was able to approach it.
We also had a lot of access to Daryle Jenkins, who plays the black activist who, in real life, helped Bryon get out of the movement. And Daryle and Bryon actually shared a hotel room up in Kingston, New York, where we filmed, and came to set together and were very informative. And Daryle is just a wealth of knowledge because he's dedicated 20 years of his life to turning white nationalists, white supremacists, over to the other side, seeing the errors of their ways. And Daryle was also largely responsible for raising the money for Bryon to remove his tattoos.
And it was very, very touching to see the two of them together. And I think when you see Bryon's journey, and that now his closest friend in the world that he touches, he puts his arm around, is this big black guy. And it's really extraordinary to see how far he came. And that was a big part of all of our attraction to this story, and just showing that someone can really change.
Mm. But since you said horrifying before, Danielle, of course this whole story is so frightening in a way, and it makes you angry. I just wanted to know if any one of you ever, in between doing this film, were you ever afraid of all this obviously big scene that is still there and is in every country, and sometimes you think it's raising. So what did you think? Were you ever afraid?
I was worried I was going to get killed doing this movie, potentially, for sure. I mean, it was probably irrational thoughts that I had, but I was certainly, you're entering into territory that is violent, is criminal. You know, we're also dressed as these people in another community when we're filming this. You know, I have hate tattoos on my face. I was wearing some of those tattoos out at night.
Skin,
you know, in that community, you know, I know what I would do if I saw someone wearing that kind of stuff in my community. I'm going to approach that person. You know, so yeah, it's a very it's weird because also you approach it from a different place as an actor, because the way one has to approach it is if it is his other family. But Bryon clearly didn't have the best upbringing as a child. That's very clear. It's very turbulent. His high school days were pretty horrible for him. He sought out another family, and they provided stuff. They said, if you want to have a tattoo studio, we'll give you a tattoo studio. You want to get drunk, I'll buy you a beer. You want to go get in a fight, that'll be great. That'll make you a man. I think there's something about the lack of some kind of male figure in this person's life that if he had an alternative, maybe it wouldn't have turned out this way. It's just this provides something to these wayward people, and then they become indoctrinated, and then it's very difficult to get out.
Sure. There's a question in the middle.
My name is Mahari Segit, African Refugee News. When I saw this film in January, I didn't know what it was about because I never read anything. I just go in and see the film. I was amazed the power of love that you brought in this film, that changed a human being. That for me was the part of the film, love. And but then I just want to ask the actors, the both of you, doing this film, because this is a hard film. We have the problems also in Berlin, around in East Germany. These kids, they turn to the they go to the right because they don't have love, they don't have understanding, they don't have anything. So this is a good film for them, to see that they can change. There is a hope. How difficult it was for you, especially for you, because I remember you were here with Holland Phil, remember? With Mackenzie.
Good memory.
So, how hard it was to get in, because you're a rapper too, yeah? You sing, so, then I have also to make my work after the film. So can you tell me how hard it was to get in the subject and in the personality of this, because it was really great.
Thanks.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much. I mean, you approach a subject like this, with a subject like this that is not, it's in the news. It's on the front page, and it's on the TV, and it's on there. The first time that I spoke to Bryon was the day of Charlottesville. That same day that was happening. It was crazy that it coincided with that, but he wanted to get off the phone with me because he said, I think my friend's in trouble. And he was talking about Daryle Jenkins, the guy who eventually would get him out of the movement. There is an approach to this which is, why are we shining a light on these people? Why are we giving these people a platform to tell their story, And I think it's a very interesting question. I think it's, and I toyed with that. I mean, I remember after Charlottesville, I said to him, I don't think we should do this. It's very difficult for me to, you know, after something like that, to, you know, and he persisted. It's important to show, you can't have one without the other. To show love, you need the hate. You do. And what I like about this film is he finds love in these children. He finds love in this woman. He finds, I think, what he was searching for possibly in his childhood, the way that he would want to be treated as a kid and the way he treats these children. But the film ends with a question. The question is, if you hate something so profoundly, if you stand for hate, and you go through this process where you go through 2 years of procedure, 200 treatments to try and remove this hateful ink from your skin, and even though that is gone, are you changed? And can you ever be changed fully? That is the ultimate question that this film is proposing. And I don't have the answer, but I know what I hope the answer is. I hope the answer is that love defeats hate. And I hope that you find something that makes you want to be a better person, ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie and I, the first time we met up for maybe 3 hours or something and just spoke about the content and how we felt about it and how we were willing to approach it. And it was tough. Like, I think I left meeting you that day more terrified, actually, than ever, because we really, really went in depth about why are we doing this and what are we telling, because for both of us, it's incredibly important to show that this is something that we are completely against. And ultimately, for me, it came down to the reason these people keep existing is because they teach their children, and it's just a cycle. It's like a cycle that is never ending, and it's never gonna change unless people change. And Bryon is someone that changed. Bryon is someone that found another way, taught his kids differently, and that is a few less people that are now gonna be in this movement, and a few less people that are focused on hate and now are focused on love. There is even one person that can see this and think, oh, there is another option, there is a way out, even though it seems impossible, then that is worth it. Because ultimately it is about education, and honestly, it's these people are actually a very small percent of the population, but they've got very loud voices, and they come out in every platform possible. They do demonstrations, and they're getting a lot of publicity. And this tells another side. This tells a way out, and I think that that is important to show that there is another way.
I think it's no coincidence that 3 of the producers on this are Jewish. And when Guy and I are married, and when he and I went and met Bryon and Julie for the first time in New Mexico, they had never met Jews before. We'd never met skinheads before, and they'd never met Jews. And you know, we had this tremendous weekend with them when they signed over their life rights. And it was 4 people really trepidatious with each other who came out 4 days later, totally bonded, and in this sort of union, let's go and tell this story. And Guy is the grandchild of 4 Holocaust survivors. And he went to his remaining grandfather, who was still alive, and said, should I tell this story? And his grandfather said, you have my blessing.
Thank you.
There you go.
Maybe, Guy, you can say something more about your cast. I mean, we see 2 of them who work really well together, but how did you choose them, and how did you choose Vera Farmiga and Bill Kemp, who are so perfect for these, as I said, ambivalent and really strange, also giving but also frightening parents?
Well, first of all, I want to say, because I didn't speak enough about Jamie and Danielle work here. I mean, yes, they based on real, figures and real people, but they brought so much layers and so much work to the characters, and they, Jamie brought his own Bryon, and Danielle brought her own Julie, and that's what made everything more human, because obviously they knew them, but they didn't, it wasn't like, kind of like they didn't try to do the exact same character. So that was something amazing to see the work that they put in the characters and they brought to the movie. And then Vera and Bill, and it's like what Oren and I always talk about, how Bill is a gift for every movie, and Oren said every movie I will have Bill in. It will be a blessing. And Bill is amazing, and Vera, you know, kind of took from the Odin kind of Viking world, and that's what her kind of anchor was. You know, that wasn't true at all. It was just kind of bullshit that they believe in. And so she had her own process, but I'm so lucky to have those amazing actors that brought themselves to the characters and also had, you know, freedom to create what they want to do. So I was just amazed by them, and obviously the rest of the cast as well.
Thank you. There's one question.
Yeah, Nicola von Spätvorstellung, das Kinomagazin. And Jamie, in the movie there's a scene you enter a building and a man is looking at you only because of the tattoos you are wearing. So did something changed in the movie when you wear the tattoos? And why do you think, all of you, maybe, what changed when people wear tattoos? Oh, not only like these ones.
Sorry. So I remember, so we did a pre-shoot, we did like a test, and a lot of things became quite clear during that test. One, I have these really big, like, sweet guy ears, apparently, and, you know, like a very kind of innocent-ish face, which betrays everything about this character that I'm supposed to be doing. So I think we just kind of sat and looked in the mirror and was like, how do we, you know what I mean? Like, how does this work? It was very clear instantly. It was like, well, you've got to put on some weight. You got to just chuck on as much as you can. And we kind of did that. We even came up with this thing where we tried to, like, stick these ears back so that it became much more of like a clinical kind of cranium in that way. Like, it was just kind of straight. And then we couldn't ever do reverses over my shoulder because you would see this thing on the back of my ear, so that didn't work. We then tried a bunch of different teeth. I was hesitant about teeth, but then we molded Bryon's teeth, and I put them in my mouth. So I'm wearing Bryon's actual teeth, which is amazing. And all that was kind of coming together, and obviously the tattoos are the tattoos. You can't escape that. That's always going to be part of it. But as soon as, well, and the shaving the head, of course, absolutely, yeah, and that does change a person instantly, for sure. But then, as soon as we put these, like, darker contacts in my eyes, as soon as, like, the dark, just the hollowness of these eyes start piercing through with this kind of snaggle tooth poking out, this character he became like a shark, like this vicious predator that was kind of detached from your feelings and didn't care about how it made you feel. The whole point of it was about intimidation. The whole reason he could put this on his face was that he didn't want to talk to you. He wanted you to be afraid. That's a very powerful thing. These guys and these movements, they thrive off of this feeling of making you feel less than and making you feel scared. And it's power. I mean, we would go out to lunch sometimes in this very lovely town of Kingston, upstate New York, and I'd be like, give me some eggs, please. And they'd be like, okay, hon, how would you like your eggs? And she wouldn't look at me. And I'd be like, I want them scrambled, please. Just looking right at her. And I think when humans interact with something that they're terrified of, they want to pretend it doesn't exist. There's an unwillingness to confront it. They don't want to see it. And it goes to the shadow, you know, it doesn't happen. But I certainly got a sense of, like, if I looked at someone, they were terrified of me. I've never, ever, ever had that before in my life. People usually look at me and they go, oh, he's that little kid from that movie. So sweet. You know, that's basically my life. So this is very different, you know, and that ultimately is the whole point. It really is.
He stayed with his tattoos for the entire shoot. Okay, he woke up at 4 a.m. They did retouch. We have a video of him, like, you know, doing that, but he stayed in character through the entire shoot, which is very, very hard, you know, mentally and physically. But yeah, that was an amazing process.
This film is also about succeeding to get out of this circle, of this world, and of this scene. So, is it? Did you think about showing this film to? I don't know how to reach them, but to show the film there where people could see it who really maybe want to get out of circles like this.
Well, you know, it's. Maybe our producer can.
We've talked. We're being released in the summer by A24, and we've talked about the educational component of this film and showing this film in colleges, showing this film in towns where there is a right-wing constituency. So it's definitely our plan that we want this movie to start conversations and also, I think sometimes when you make films like that, it's a mistake if it's only seen by liberal people, because then you're just talking in an echo chamber. You really want this movie to be seen by people who, hopefully, it'll change their mindset.
Mm-hmm. Maybe all of you producers can please say once again, how did you come aboard of this film?
Well, I would love to mention, first of all, Skin, the short film, which is
my next question.
Which is the film that Guy made when he arrived from Israel and wanted to show, as an Israeli filmmaker who'd never made an English language film, that he could direct American actors, that he could tell a story set in America. And we were sent the short film by his agents, and I'd never seen a short film as good as this short film, Skin. It deals with similar themes. Danielle is in it as well, but it's a different story, and we were just blown away. So that was a big reason we were drawn to it. And Guy and Jamie is since Oscar nominated for the short film. Exciting.
So you're going to be
very proud. I'm very proud of both of them.
But for us, why we were drawn to it was really, I think when movies can entertain, but also have a message that impacts people, that affects change, for me, that's why we make films. And this script really felt that it did both of those things. You can see the script and it's, you're on the edge of your seat and you're wondering, is he going to get out? Is he going to be okay? Is anyone going to get to him? And you can see it purely as a piece of entertainment, and at the same time, you leave that movie and your mind is blown by this world and the people in it, and it leaves me certainly with a really hopeful message that no matter how messed up your life is and your actions are, you can change them and you can be a better human being.
Thank you.
Oren?
Oh no, I was hoping to not say a word in this room for the first time. It was a very simple story. Guy got in touch with me and sent me the script, and I have to confess I didn't want to like the script at all. I wanted to say, okay, we're both Israeli and we're in touch, but I can't help you. And I started reading it and I couldn't stop, and I remember thinking, oh shit, I gotta help him make this movie. And I was just blown away by it, the quality of the writing and also what he was trying to say. And it just took off from there. We started figuring it out, and then the brains in the operation took over, and here's the film.
But I gotta say something. Nobody wanted to do this film. We got so many no's, and so many, people, like producers told Jamie and I, there's no such thing as extremism in America. It's just a little something in Midwest, in the Midwest. It's not
that
real.
That was the reason for them to say no, yeah?
Yeah, so everybody said no, and the only saints with a lot of courage and, and inspiration were Oren, Celine, and Trudy, that really took us and said, it's important. And you have to understand that Charlottesville just happened.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a crazy time in the U.S. It still is, but it was like the beginning of the crazy thing. And Trump got elected, and it was only now you can look back a little bit and see and digest what it means. But they had the vision and the courage. So I'm really thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. There's another question over there.
This for the director. Another film was here, and a lot of people have said no before. That's what We Are England, and then became a hit because I saw it at the Berlinale generation for the children, not for the big ones.
Yeah.
So
I was in the generation with my films.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I was honored today when you
yeah, you
met me. I was really, I didn't know you, but I said, oh my God.
Yeah, you're amazing.
You.
So thank you for being here and asking.
My question goes, how did you choose the mother and the father? Because they play a great part in this film.
How do I choose what?
The mother and the father.
Oh, the mother and the father.
Can you tell us more about it? Because they really played a big part in this film.
Well, first of all, we had an amazing casting director named Laura Rosenthal, who's a legend, and Oren introduced me to her, and she had also her ideas, and obviously Oren, and Celine, they helped me a lot with seeing actors and approaching people, and it was just one of those amazing, opportunities. Vera was available, and she wanted to do something challenging. And Bill, I saw him in The Night Off, in this amazing TV show, and he's amazing actor. So, they were just there, and I was so overwhelmed by them saying yes. So yeah, it's through it's a group of people trying to understand who's the right person, and then you have the family. But Oren obviously helped me a lot with shaping the script and also ideas for the cast. So, yeah.
Oren came up with the idea for Jamie.
Jamie, because he met Jamie. Oren met Jamie like 3 weeks before I met Jamie, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do have to confess, I've never watched you work as a child. Because
I think you should probably get out of this building.
Because I don't work with children, so I'm interested in adults.
Sure.
So when I met Jamie, and it was just so clear to me that there's a ferociousness and a dedication and a passion that I probably felt only once before in a meeting with an actor when I met Ben Foster, and
that's high company. Thank you. That means a lot.
I just think the world of him.
Thanks, man.
So you met him, Oren, and you saw the quality that you were looking for.
He told me I saw a man, not a kid. And I drove to Virginia to meet Jamie in his TV show, was shooting, and I saw this, I just saw, I saw Bryon. So, yes, please.
Yes, wait for the microphone.
Oh.
A question for all of you. If you go straight about the title, if you go straight for skin, or if you had a confrontation among you guys and all other working title during the project, or if you choose, you pick up skin.
No, we didn't have any because it says it all. It's a mental and physical thing, and it was just there. Yeah, skin. No one had, right? You didn't have any. Yeah.
From the very beginning, the project was named Skin.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you.
From day one.
We all had skin in the game.
There's another question on the left.
Only works in English.
Hi from Brazil, Rodrigo from TV Globo. I have two questions. First, for the director, I would like to understand a little bit more about your work with your cinematography to create the visual of the film. And I have a question to Jamie. Whenever I watch you, man, I got impressed by the way you deal with silence in your characters. I would like you to explain a little bit what silence represents to you as a tool to act. Thank you very much.
Take this first.
Yeah, I don't like silence. As a person, I feel very uncomfortable in it. I think a lot of people feel quite uncomfortable with it. However, I think you can convey so much more in silence than you ever could with a line of dialogue or a scene where you're interacting with someone. The challenge of this movie was not to be frightening or physically domineering or be good at fighting, or be really hateful. It was about trying to understand a man who is unconscious. He is literally sleepwalking through his life, which is only basically going to kill him. He will die because he will be in a fight. He will die because he will drink himself to death. He will die because this is the road that he has made for himself. So the real challenge actually was trying to understand the bit between the lines, was trying to understand the notion of despondence, of disconnection, of disassociation from human suffering, from your own hateful words, to be so distant from a sense of normalcy, or what we understand to be societal normalcy, of acceptance. That was always going to be the real challenge, is when he's not speaking, do I still think he has and thinks all of these things? And it was truly because that, Guy had instilled such a sense of trust in me as an actor that I would do things that were not written in the script, and sometimes that is not okay on a lot of sets, and I've got in trouble for that before. But he was very willing to let things go wrong and then correct themselves, and that that really takes someone who is trusting of his actors, but is willing to explore something that is outside of the page. And fortunately, I was given the space to do that.
And regarding the cinematographer, his name is Arnaud Potier. He's an amazing French DP who moved to the States, and I saw his work, and I loved his natural light and how, it's basically he's doing poetry and realistic poetry, which I liked for this movie. And we met in LA, we spoke, we were on the same page immediately, and he was amazing working with him. Yeah. Cool.
And again, talking of silence and being loud, because Danielle said something about this extremist having loud voices and screaming, that your movie totally succeeded for me to show these two worlds, one very loud world and very exhausting also, because you have to hate so much, and it's much nicer if you don't have to hate so much. I mean, I know that you can't answer this question, why is that so, but I'm very thankful that you asked the question and you show us all these things. And since you seem to not have any more questions, I would just like to say that I'm crossing my fingers for the film here in every possible way, and of course for the Oscars and for your short film Skin. So good luck. Thank you very much.
So much for having
Thank you
us.
very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.